You are retired with time and money, but every choice, from booking a trip to managing a bill, feels surprisingly hard. If that sounds familiar, well, you're in exactly the right place. This feeling isn't some personal failing. It's a shared experience, and it actually has a name, the Senior Decision Bottleneck. Today, we're going to talk about why it happens, and more importantly, I'm going to give you some simple, really powerful tools to get your clarity and your confidence back. So here's our game plan for today. We're going to start by putting a name to a feeling that, a lot of us over 60 know all too well. Then, we're going to gently unpack what's actually happening in the brain, not to worry you, but to empower you. After that, we'll get to the single most powerful principle for finding that peace of mind. From there, we'll walk through 4 simple, practical steps you can start using right away, and then we'll zoom out for a shift in perspective that'll help you for the long haul. And we'll finish up with one small, totally achievable step you can take the second we're done here. All right, let's dive into Section 1, the hidden truth over 60. We call this the paradox of retirement, because really, this should be the simplest, most free time of your life. But for so many people, it just feels like the exact opposite, doesn't it? This feeling, this strange weight that settles on what should be simple choices, that is the senior decision bottleneck. It's the sense that the stakes for everything are suddenly way higher. Choosing a Medicare plan feels like a final exam you just can't fail. Deciding where to put some of your savings feels monumental. Heck, even planning a vacation, which is supposed to be pure joy, can get completely bogged down in what-ifs. The most important thing for you to know right now is that this is not just you. It's a real psychological phenomenon that tons of people experience. So why does this happen? Well, that brings us to our second section, where we're going to look at the science of it all. What's really changing inside that's causing this? And let me be clear, this isn't about you getting older. This is about biology and psychology. And just understanding it is the first big step toward feeling better. What we've got here are 2 totally natural changes that kind of combine to create a perfect storm. So on the left, you see amplified loss aversion. This is a little quirk we all have, but it tends to get stronger as we get older. All it means is that the fear of making a wrong choice feels way more intense than the joy of making a right one. A small mistake doesn't feel like a lesson learned, it can feel like a disaster, like there's no time to recover. Then on the right, you see reduced processing speed. Now this has nothing to do with intelligence, it's all about bandwidth. Think of your brain like a computer. In your 20s, maybe you were running the latest, fastest model. You could have 20 different programs open at once, no problem. As we age, that processor just becomes more like a trusty, reliable laptop. It works perfectly fine, but if you try to open those same 20 programs all at once, it's going to slow down and it might even freeze up. So when you mix that intense fear of making a mistake with a brain that's naturally designed to work a bit more deliberately, it's no wonder that even simple decisions can feel totally paralyzing. At the very heart of this bottleneck is a part of your brain called your working memory. Honestly, the best way to picture it is like a small mental desk. It's the space where you hold all the information you're actively using, the numbers you're crunching, the pros and cons you're weighing. But here's the catch. That desk is tiny. Now, imagine trying to choose a new health insurance plan. You've got premiums, deductibles, copays, networks, drug tiers. All of that stuff gets dumped onto your tiny mental desk at the exact same time. And the result? It's just instant overload. And what happens when your desk is so covered in papers that there's no space left to even think? You freeze up. You can't sort through the mess. That is decision paralysis. It's not that you're incapable of making the choice, it's that your mental workspace is so cluttered with information that you can't even begin to think clearly. So what happens? Usually, we make no decision at all. Okay, so if an overloaded mental desk is the problem, what in the world is the solution? This brings us to Section 3, and to the single most important idea for pushing back against that feeling of being overwhelmed. This is your core principle for getting your clarity back. Complexity is the enemy of clarity. The modern world just bombards us with the idea that more choice is always better. More data, more features, more options. But for the human brain, especially a brain that values careful, considered choices, the exact opposite is true. Complexity is just the fog that hides the path forward. So our goal isn't to get smarter or faster, it's to get more strategic by just systematically getting rid of the complexity. Now, there's a formal name for this strategy: cognitive conservation. Think of your mental energy like your phone battery. Every single decision you make all day, big or small, drains a little bit of that power. What to have for breakfast, which bill to pay first, what to watch on TV, it all adds up. Cognitive conservation is just being smart about how you use that energy. It's about consciously choosing not to spend your mental battery on things that can be simplified, so you have a full charge for the decisions that really matter: your health, your family, your finances. So how do we actually do this? Well, this single most effective tool for cognitive conservation, a tool that acts like a cognitive speed bump to stop your brain from spinning out of control with too many options, is the number 3. This simple, powerful number is the foundation for everything that's about to follow. When we adopt a rule like this one, we're using what psychologists call a heuristic. It's just a fancy word for a mental shortcut or a rule of thumb. And we use them all the time without even thinking about it. You know, if the sky's dark, I should probably bring an umbrella. You don't do a full weather analysis, you just use a simple rule for a good result. By creating these kinds of intentional shortcuts for our bigger decisions, we protect our executive function. Your executive function is basically the CEO of your brain. It's the part that does the heavy lifting, the planning, the focusing, the big calls. By using these simple rules for the smaller stuff, we keep the CEO schedule clear, so they are fresh and rested for the decisions that are truly critical. So how do we put all this into practice? In this next section, we're going to lay out 4 clear, gentle steps to turn these ideas into action. This is where we go from understanding the why to really mastering the how. All right, here are our 4 steps. We're going to go through each one. First, we're going to actively limit our options. Second, we are going to get information out of our heads and onto paper. Third, we're going to strategically delegate the small stuff. And fourth, we're going to give ourselves some breathing room with a cooling off period. Step 1 is the absolute game changer. Limit your options using the rule of 3. From now on, for any significant decision, you give yourself a hard limit. You will only compare a maximum of 3 options at a time. That's it. Looking at insurance plans, you only look at 3. Planning a trip, research only 3 destinations. This single action stops your working memory from getting flooded. It takes a crazy universe of 100 choices and turns it into a manageable decision between A, B, and C. It is by far the fastest way out of that analysis paralysis. Step 2 is to externalize information. Basically, get it out of your head. Remember that small mental desk we talked about? This step is about physically cleaning it off. Grab a piece of paper, a notebook, whatever, and just write things down. A simple pros and cons list for each of your 3 options is perfect. When you do this, you're no longer using your precious brain power just to hold all the information. You're freeing up your mind to do what it does best: analyze, compare, and think critically. You're letting the paper do the remembering so you can do the deciding. Step 3 is all about smart energy conservation. Delegate low-stakes choices. Your mental energy is a finite resource, right? So don't waste it on the small stuff. Set up automatic payments for your reoccurring bills so you don't even have to think about them. If you need, say, a new toaster, instead of spending hours reading online reviews, ask your tech-savvy kid or a friend to just find the top 3 options for you. This is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of leadership. You're the CEO of your life, and any good CEO knows how to delegate to save their focus for the big strategic decisions. And finally, step 4, institute a cooling off period. For any decision that feels really important or high stakes, give yourself a mandatory pause. No matter how sure you feel, just wait 24, maybe 48 hours before you finalize it. This simple rule does 2 amazing things. First, it completely neutralizes any high-pressure sales tactics. You take back control of the timeline. And second, it allows your brain to process everything in the background. It lets that emotional, knee-jerk reaction fade and allows your more logical, long-term thinking to come to the front. You will always make a calmer, more confident choice this way. Now that we have the practical tools, let's kind of zoom out in section 5 and talk about the mindset shift that makes all of this really work. This is about wisdom for the long game, a totally new way to think about simplicity. First and foremost, please let this message sink in. The difficulty you've been feeling is a structural challenge, not a personal flaw. Your brain is working exactly the way it's supposed to, but it's operating in a world that has become unnaturally complex. It's like you're driving a perfectly good classic car on some chaotic, futuristic superhighway it was never designed for. The problem isn't the car, it's the environment. So be kind to yourself. You are simply feeling the friction between a thoughtful human brain and an overwhelming modern world. And this leads us to a new mantra. We so often think of strength as being able to handle more, to juggle more, to process more information. But true wisdom is realizing that simplicity is strength.
Choosing to engage with fewer, better options isn't giving up. It is a powerful, strategic move. It is a sign of true confidence and intelligence to say, you know what, I refuse to play this game of overwhelming complexity.
And this all leads to the ultimate payoff. Every time you use the rule of 3 or you delegate a small task, you're making a deposit in your mental energy bank. And this isn't just about feeling less stressed today. It's about securing your long-term clarity and your autonomy. It's about making sure you have the mental reserves to manage your own affairs, make your own choices, and live independently with confidence for years and years to come. Simplifying isn't about shrinking your world. It's about making sure you stay the clear-headed master of it. And that brings us to our final short section. We've gone from the problem to the science to the solution. Now it's time for your gentle first step to put all this newfound clarity into immediate action.
So, if you only remember one thing from our time together today, let it be this. The single distilled lesson, the core truth that unlocks everything else we've talked about, is that complexity is the enemy of clarity. The way forward isn't through more effort, it's through less complication. So let's bring this all home with one gentle but very specific invitation. Right now, I want you to think of just one decision you've been putting off because it feels too big. Maybe it's a new cell phone plan, or finding a contractor for a home repair, or even just picking a new book to read. Here's the challenge. Tackle that one thing today using your new rule. You will only research and compare 3 options. That's it. Take that big, overwhelming decision and make it small, manageable, and clear.
As we close out, let's just remember what's really going on here. That feeling of stress around decisions, it isn't a sign that you've lost a step. It's just the natural result of trying to pour way too much information into a brain that has a limited workspace. But now you have the tools. Remember the simple power of the rule of 3 to cut through all that noise. Remember the wisdom of delegating to conserve your precious mental energy. By actively choosing simplicity, you're doing so much more than just making things easier. You are building a protective moat around your mind, actively preserving your mental clarity and securing your autonomy for all the years ahead. Choose simplicity. Preserve clarity.